Good morning, everyone. It's Saturday, which means it's time for yet another salty Saturday morning. I am your host, Mr. Kadish. Yes, get it right. That is my name, Mr. And we got a lot of stuff to talk about today, a lot of Star Wars stuff, a lot of Star Trek stuff, a lot of Marvel stuff. But the big thing is going to be the Rings of Power. And we have a special guest on just to talk about that stuff. But before we get to him, let me introduce my pared down fantastic panel of nerds. Starting with the one, the only, Mr. Dutch Butters. How you doing today, buddy?
Good morning. Good morning. I'm here, sort of. I'm not in the best way today, but here we are. We got Chickwick movies to talk about, and Marvel movies to talk about, and Rings, and that I haven't watched any of them. So yeah, let's do it. Let's just talk out our ass for 2 hours, Matt. Let's go.
Well, that's what we do every Saturday, Dutch. But for those of you wondering, so first of all, Mr. Brian Montgomery from the Popcast, he is off doing children's birthday stuff today. Yeah. It's his own children, so don't accuse him of being a creeper.
He got family aggroed hard.
Yeah, he got family aggroed hard, so he wasn't able to join us today, unfortunately. Speaking of family, Odin, the All-Father, is putting one of his little ones down for a nap, so he'll be on as soon as that happens. And Tom Connors Jr. is busy eating cereal and watching people's feet online. Yeah, so I'm sure he'll join us. Yeah, once he's done. He just kind of shows up whenever. I'm going to have a talk to him about that. It's like, I'm going to take you off the thumbnail if you don't start showing up on time, Tom.
That's right.
But I'm really excited to introduce our special guest for today's episode. This is a YouTuber who I've been watching for a while now, and his channel is really, really excellent. In fact, if you like channels like Disparu and stuff like that, his channel is definitely one to be checking out. I found him when he was excoriating Zack Snyder's Rebel Moon movies, which he did a fantastic job of doing. And now he's doing the Rings of Power, and I'm really excited to have him on. In fact, if you haven't subscribed to his channel, link is in the description and in the chat. So be sure to do that before the show ends today. But Mr. Random Film Talk is here today. How you doing, Mr. Random?
Yeah, I'm doing pretty well, thank you. My mental health has maybe taken a little bit of a turn because I have been swimming in Rings of Power now for I think exactly a month, because I think it started airing a month ago. And I've done pretty much nothing else, but it has been worth it because it has been fun to kind of go through all the ways in which it fails. And I guess that part of the good thing is that it's difficult to be depressed at how bad it is because we already have our expectations set from season one. But, every now and then you get a scene and it kind of works and we can be like, oh, that's nice. But then it will keep going, and it's like, damn it, you couldn't keep it up. You couldn't keep it going. And like at this point, we're 7 episodes in. We've got 1 episode left, and I'm going to be making a list of the characters who survive season 1 in terms of they don't get damaged. Because off the top of my head, I cannot think of a single one.
Well, Random, how undercover officers are oftentimes when they're pulled out, they have to go through therapy and stuff like that just to heal from all the trauma that they experienced while they were undercover. I feel like movie tubers need the same thing, like what you're going through right now. It's like once this season's over, you got to go see a therapist, work through your issues, the trauma you suffered through, and hopefully recover from it.
So my therapy is that I've got a holiday halfway through in the latter half of October booked, which is partly why I've been getting through these episodes and basically going at it for silly hours. But also, I've got a whole load of video games that I really just want to take November off and just play video games because we got like 4 different games that came out very recently that I want to play. And I can't because I'm making Rings of Power videos. But, I can't complain. I'm doing it to myself.
Well, we've got a Salty Nerd Gaming channel, which I'm sure Dutch would love to have you on to talk about those video games. But speaking of trauma, guys, let me welcome the one, the only Tom Connors Jr. here to traumatize all of us today.
Wow, he looks cranky this morning.
Did you not have your cereal, Tom?
I ain't watching no Rings of Power.
Rings. We didn't either.
Rings. That's why we have Random on, so he can inform us what we've missed so far. How you doing today, Tom?
Sus.
That's right. We're gonna talk about a show we haven't watched.
I've been up since like 6 o'clock this morning.
Oh yeah.
Slacker.
I've been up since 5, so there you go.
Which means it was 7 o'clock my time, so I was up an hour before you.
Oh, touche. Mr. from the future over there. All right. So hopefully Odin will be joining us soon. But guys, before we get going, we have some housekeeping to get to. First of all, I want to give a big shout out.
I don't do
Big shout out to Ruby Hoove, who gifted 1 Salty Nerd podcast membership. Thank you, Ruby. Really appreciate that. And if you got that membership in the chat, give a big thanks to Ruby Hoove. And speaking of memberships, we got Eric Winberg, who gifted his obligatory 1 Salty Nerd podcast membership. And guys, by the way, if you get one of these memberships, go check out our playlist. We have a new members episode dropping this coming Wednesday, I believe. So that'll be updated so you can get access to that. And of course, Major Chai Chai dropping the 5 Salty Nerd gifted podcast memberships. And Keely Chow, a member for 13 months, says, we need to have random film talk on FNT. Yes, they do. Good luck getting booked on there, Mr. Random, because I've been booked on there before, and then they kicked me off last minute because they thought I was someone else.
Yeah.
So,
who are you?
Yeah. They're like, wait, you're not this guy? Oh, sorry. Suddenly we had a scheduling conflict.
Oh, we thought you were Matt Vader. No, never mind.
Yeah, something like that. But guys, we want to give a big shout out to our leaderboard here, which is going to be changing very soon, guys. It's going to be very soon changing. But first, I want to get to all of our gifters, the Queen of Gifted Membership, Jillian N., Bob Dorsey, Sam Schwager, Major Chai Chai, and Eric Winberg. They're our most consistent podcast or channel membership gifters. Big shout out to those guys. And of course, Mexican Iron Man, who always comes in every single episode and drops some super chats on us. Really appreciate him. He's our most consistent one. But Mr. Butters.
Yeah.
Your super fan, William Forbus, still number 3 in terms of dropping super chats on us. Scotty Dub used to be number 2, right?
Yeah.
But he came out swinging today. We got to give a big shout out to Scotty Dub for 500. I learned that Apple takes that 1 cent away when you do that thing. So he actually donated 500. He said, I am reasserting my natural alpha maleness here. Apologies for my long absence from the scene, my dear saltiest of nerds. Selling weapons on the black market is a profitable and time-consuming endeavor, especially these days. Long live MAGA and the forces of order. Down with the forces of entropy and weakness, wherever they may be. Hashtag let's fucking go. Scotty Dub.
Yeah.
Big golf clap for Mr. Scotty Dub here.
I would think selling weapons on the black market would be like really easy right now.
Oh yeah, especially if you live in Afghanistan.
The world's on fire, dude. It's crazy.
Yeah, but want to give a big shout out to Mr. Scotty Dub, and because he is the most recent $500 super chat, he will take the number 1 place from Brian G. next episode.
How the fuck do you guys do that?
It's my charming personality, Tom. Something you should learn to
do.
Dutch
for. Offers to show his feet occasionally, and we just get the money rolls in. Speaking of rolling in,
Tom's got kind of a weak beard game going. It might be the
This is true.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Speaking of rolling in, we got Odin from OMB Reviews, the Lord of the Shelves, the King of the Pineapple Pizza. How you doing today, buddy?
I'm doing well. Apologies for being late. It is that toddler nap time, and it being my birthday today made it a little bit more complicated because he wanted to get some stuff done before his nap. So,
well, happy birthday to Odin. Are you going to have a pineapple cake? Pineapple upside down cake?
No. and my one request is that you don't mention pineapple ever again today.
Pineapple, my only weakness.
With the Cool Whip, pineapple
It's a
upside down.
scientific fact that pizza goes bad the moment you put pineapple on it, and so does the
true.
pineapple.
You guys are high, dude. Pineapple.
Totally, it's just a horrible thing.
Dried
Scientific.
pineapple, fresh pineapple, pineapple pizza,
Well,
upside down pineapple cake. It's all good.
What?
Well, Odin, happy birthday to your daughter. That she is the reason you weren't here last week. And then happy birthday to you today. And we got another thing to celebrate because last week when Razor Fist was on with us, we gave away one of his hardcover copies of Ghosts of the Badlands. And we had a winner, a gentleman by the name of Aaron Chapman. And he sent us this image of him holding his ill-gotten goods up for the camera. So he received that.
Was fast.
Dang.
Yeah. We I didn't have to ship it overseas. I just went to Amazon UK and said, here's his address. But the conversion rate was a little bit tough, but we'll talk about that conversion rate in a little bit. But just want to give a big shout out to Aaron for winning that Ghost of the Badlands. He's really excited that he got it, but he's going to be able to read it and all that good stuff. So yeah, congratulations, Aaron, on winning that little thing and thanks to Razorfist for writing it as well. So guys, the goal, we're already almost there. We want to get 10 new members throughout the course of this live stream. And also want to remind everyone that the Real McCoy podcast comes on right after us. So we're going to redirect you once the show is over to that podcast so that you guys can watch Mephisto and his crew over there talk about movies. So really good stuff going on over there. And yeah, Kate just talks about feet pics. Odin pops in. That is not a coincidence. That is not a coincidence.
I thought the tech connection was to make, a $500 super chat comes in, and then Odin's like, oh, hi. But no, you got to bring up
well, you've come in.
Hello, big boy.
Yeah. Yes, you've come in plenty of times without the $500 super chats. So we're just running with it. We're just running with it.
Don't listen to him.
Yeah. All right, we got a couple more super chats here. So we got
rub it in, why don't you?
For $2. Odin, destined to enter the chat at the best times. Yes, indeed.
It's become
Timing is impeccable.
On
Indeed.
FNT, it's become a curse. Yes.
Yeah. Well, like if you just showed up here on time, you'd probably miss a lot of this stuff. So
yeah, this is true. Family first, though.
Right.
Family first.
Yes, family first. And speaking of family, Old Man Rising for $5, part of the gaming family over here on Salty Nerd. SaltyNerdDiscord.com. Space Marines 2 sub channel. Let's go. Hail Dutch. Hang in there.
Old Man's one of our diehard Space Marines 2 players over in the gaming community. He needs friends. If you're playing Space Marines 2, we played the game for a week and we deserted him to go play the Forever Winter. He's him and a couple guys are hanging in there, but they need some more people to play with. So if you're playing Space Marines 2, go check it out over on the gaming channel, Salty Nerd Gaming. So
all right, guys. Well, enough video game talk. Let's start talking about movies. In particular, the Rey movie, which is apparently on hold now.
Oh no. Anyway, moving on.
Yeah.
If you guys remember, so a while ago there were rumors that the Rey movie's been shelved, been canceled, and Lucasfilm came out and said, "Oh no, that's not the case. This isn't canceled. We're still moving forward. We still got plans for Rey. Rey is going to be the foundation upon which all future Star Wars is made." And then they come out very recently and say, "It's been put on hold. We're gonna shelve this thing temporarily, guys. This is just temporary." Yeah. But if you guys remember, they did the same thing with Obi-Wan, where basically they said, we have all the scripts ready to go. We're ready to go in production. Ewan McGregor's ready. His schedule's cleared. And then they're like, oh, we're going to put this on indefinite hiatus because we need to do some retooling with it. And that eventually actually did end up getting made, much to my chagrin, and I'm sure many others. But they've been making a big deal about Daisy Ridley's return as Rey in the Star Wars universe. And now it seems like there could be trouble in paradise with these plans. Now, Lucasfilm currently has 7 movies announced, but we don't know which one of those are actually going to be made or like actually moving forward or anything like that. The Rey ones seem to be the most likely to get made, but now it's not so clear. So I want to get my expert panel's takes on this. Let's start with you, Tom, since you have your nose to the grindstone and your ear to the rail on all things movie related. What's your take on this? Do you think Rey is actually going to get made, or New Jedi Order is actually going to get made, or is it going to go the way of so many other Star Wars movies that just get dumped?
I think it's somewhere between the Mandalorian film and Rian Johnson's trilogy. It's somewhere in there. It's in that space, that realm of existence. I think there's something to this. I think that this is on the verge of getting canceled. I think Daisy Ridley's recent lashing out at male Star Wars fans is a result of this.
Wait, what? I didn't hear about that.
You didn't hear about this? Yeah. She said that she can't help how some men view women when asked about negative reaction to her character, basically, in so many words. So it's like, okay, so you spent all these years ping-ponging away, cheap easy questions like that, and now you've decided that you're going to join the hate train on the Disney side of things.
Wow.
So either that's the rhetoric they're feeding her to go with, or she's lashing out and blaming people. And I wonder if that is the reason. The reason being, she's hearing that this movie's being delayed or canceled, and it's because there's no desire for it. I mean, look at the reaction it got. Right? Like, that's the biggest reaction anything Star Wars has gotten since Luke Skywalker came back, and it was negative. Like, they couldn't even muster that much of a positive reaction on the other end for the Mandalorian film. Right? Even that was met with mostly meh.
I would think that Disney and Marvel and, you know, any Disney employee, actor for any movie, that they could just tell them, will you please just shut the fuck up with your social media and come in?
I think they're telling them to say this shit.
You know, it's unreal to me with these people just keep putting their foots in their mouths and just sabotaging
look at
career.
Look at Amandla and the way she acted. Look at what's her face from the Obi-Wan Kenobi show. It's like they're being pre-programmed for this. Yeah, Moses Ingram. It's like they're being pre-programmed for this crap. Daisy managed not to say any of this stuff for 5-6 years that she had done, you know, all these movies. And now she's finally saying something like this, and it's going right along with the same rhetoric. It's like, come on.
I'm waiting for the articles now.
I think the only reason that this movie will happen, if it happens, is because of Bob Iger's legacy and because Kathleen Kennedy will stop at nothing to make it happen.
Well,
otherwise, I think it's DOA at this point.
I thought Kathleen Kennedy's big opus was supposed to be the Indiana Jones movie, and then she was out.
Well, we saw how that worked out.
Yeah, she doesn't want to leave on a failure, Matt.
So she's going to be there for forever. Is that what you're telling me?
Pretty much. That's what I've been saying since 2018. But I want to throw this to Odin because Odin, you know, it's kind of interesting because, you know, Lucasfilms obviously still wants to go forward with this, but this seemed to be a call from Disney, especially in the wake of the failure of the Acolyte in terms of like the ratings and how like female centric that was and so on and so forth. And I'm just wondering, what's your take on this? Do you think Disney is basically pumping the brakes on a lot of these Star Wars things that have to have a big focus on women? Because famously, this movie has a director who's like a rabid feminist. Didn't work out so well for, you know, the Acolyte and so on and so forth. Rey hasn't been resonating with the male audiences, which Kathleen Kennedy herself admitted still make up the majority of Star Wars fans. So what's your take?
It's so hard to say because the key factor here is Kathleen Kennedy, because we all know she has an enormously, insanely high level of power and influence to the point where she still have a job at this point, when we know that anyone else in her position would have been fired a long time ago, like probably back when Solo happened, because that was a massive financial loss for them. And it's been loss after loss after loss ever since, especially with these horrid Disney Plus shows. So my guess is that Disney and the upper echelons of Disney financially, if they were actually to put on their financial brains for a second, would say, yeah, this should not be where we go with this. You've kind of seen hints at directions being changed at Marvel, but just like with everything with Disney, I'll believe it when I actually see it. You know, they obviously have a lot of films and projects still left in the pipe that have to come out before their supposed change is going to be actually felt in any way. So again, we'll actually see if that ever happens. But I would much more likely believe that than any change ever happening with Lucasfilm, because there's not been any real indication that they are going to change. And with Kathleen Kennedy always being at the helm of this until she gets fired or chooses to retire or something else happens, and they don't put in or have to deal with someone that is of the same vein as her, none of this is going to change, and they're just going to continue to just piss away hundreds of millions of dollars on all of these things. And so if there's any problems going on, this is also, let's be honest, this is par for the course. This is exactly how every production that Lucasfilm has done has always gone. I don't think there's been a 100% smooth production that they have had under the reign of Kathleen Kennedy. And if they have, it's been a long time since that's actually happened, right? I mean, just look at what they did when they filmed the vast majority of Solo before firing the directors, hiring someone new, reshooting a bunch of stuff, ballooning the budget. And you're seeing this some same degree also with Marvel now because of what they're doing with Captain Falcon, spending ungodly amounts of money there too. So yeah, I don't think anything's going to change. So I think that, yes, this sounds like exactly where most of these projects fall, where there's problems with them. But eventually, if she is able to, Kathleen Kennedy is going to will this film into existence.
So, guys, by the way, all the articles that we talk about in the show are linked in the description if you guys want to do your own research. But I want to throw this to Mr. Random Film Talk right now, because there was a part of this article that really kind of stood out to me. And Random, I don't know if you know this, but the guy who is in charge of writing the screenplay for the new Jedi Order, the Rey movie, his name is Stephen Knight. He is the creator and main writer for Peaky Blinders. And he also created one of our favorite Apple TV shows, C, although he only, I think, wrote the pilot maybe for that one. But he's a very talented storyteller. And he's been working on the script for well over a year now. But in this article, it basically says that a final draft of his script still hasn't been submitted to Lucasfilm. And he's in the middle of doing reshoots for his Peaky Blinders movie. And Kathleen Kennedy is continuously giving him notes on how to improve his script. And I thought that this was kind of interesting because nowhere does it mention that the director of the movie, I forget her name, but she's not, doesn't seem to be giving him notes. All these notes seem to be coming from Kathleen. And we all know that basically Rey is a self-insert for Kathleen Kennedy in the Star Wars universe. So I just find it interesting that you have this very talented storyteller who's in charge of writing the screenplay, and Kathleen Kennedy keeps telling him like, "Oh no, your script's not good enough. I want you to add this and change this." What's your take on it, Mr. Random?
So the comparison that I would want to make with that is with something, because I'm definitely going to be familiar with some of Stephen Knight's work, but I haven't actually seen Peaky Blinders. But Tony Gilroy, who did Andor, I don't know what you guys' consensus is on Andor, but I think it is probably the best thing to come out of Star Wars since 1983. And how it came out of Disney is a miracle. Like, how on earth did that happen? So I have no idea if Kathleen Kennedy and the various other higher-ups were sort of, whispering in the ear of Tony Gilroy, like, hey, why don't you do this? Why don't you, change this? And whatever it might be. But because it really does seem like it has a coherent, singular vision behind it. And I'm kind of thinking maybe they just kind of let Andor or let Tony Gilroy do his thing with Andor, because it's just, it's a show about a character that no one really knows. They weren't expecting it to be as good as it ended up being. And as far as I'm aware, it didn't perform particularly well in terms of streaming numbers. So yeah, it was expensive for them to make, but it won't have been the same kind of gamble that they're going to be making with the Rey movie. Because when they make this Rey movie, if it does ever actually happen, it is going to have a $250 million budget at a minimum. You add in advertising, that's $500 million. And the last time they did that was what was it even called? The final Rise of Skywalker, was it called?
Yeah,
I can't remember. Yeah, last time they did it, it was that, and yeah, it made money, but it didn't make them anywhere near enough money. So, yeah, I mean, the concept of a Rey film is very confusing to me because like you've got Mandalorian as a film. That I have questions with that, but I at least understand why you would do it.
We already got 3 Rey films.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's exactly. But like with the Mandalorian film, there is some way you can maybe go with the story. There are people who like the character. I'm not a huge fan, but like I understand why people like that character. Whereas with Rey, like some people who like the sequels, how many of them like it because of Rey?
3.
Like I'm 3.
The people who like the sequels like it because of Reylo, that whole
of course,
crazy thing. Yeah,
fair enough.
Yeah,
don't evoke that. Don't.
But I'll say this, Mr.
But
Random.
that's why they even made the show The Acolyte, though. You got to remember that they're actually acknowledging that group now, because that's all they have left.
Yeah, the shippers.
They turned out in droves to watch that, didn't they? Yeah.
Yep. So many of them showed up that it got canceled. Yeah. But when it comes to Andor, so like I believe I was the only one on this panel who was praising Andor when it was airing, because basically I was like, you have to watch 3 back to back in order to really get the full sense. It's basically like a movie trilogy, essentially that we got cut up into hour-long episodes and released over the course of a season, or half-hour episodes, I should say. But I really liked Andor, but I wouldn't say that it's the best Star Wars that we've gotten since Disney took over, in my opinion. But like,
Okay.
Tony Gilroy, if you ever watched his movie with George Clooney called Michael Clayton, which he wrote and directed, Andor is basically just a Star Wars version of that movie, where it's very kind of like slow and character oriented, and it's about the small things that happen within a much bigger context. And so I'm going to say that, of the Disney TV shows that we've gotten in terms of Star Wars, I think that Andor is probably the best made, but it's also very, very slow. The average normie who wants Star Wars isn't going to watch that and enjoy it, because it takes too long. It takes too much of a commitment, takes too much effort to watch it. I loved how we got to see kind of like the daily on the ground in the life of the Empire type stuff. Like that to me was like addictive. I was like, yes, give me more of that. But it was very lacking on like the epic adventure and war that made Star Wars the phenomenon that it was, in my
Maybe
opinion.
I should go back and rewatch it in 1/3 at a time. Maybe I'll go back and do that here pretty soon.
Maybe you could actually binge it now. But Dutch, what do you think about the Rey movie being shelved? Do you think that it's ever going to come back? Will it pull a Kenobi? What's your thoughts?
I don't know, man. I have excised Star Wars out of my life so much lately that I really don't have much of a thought on it. I have no interest in ever seeing a Rey product of any kind ever again. She's just a character I don't care about. She's wasn't made for me. I have no interest in it. And the only thing I could think of to say is maybe it'll be fun to watch it get made so we can watch it burn again, like everything else that they do here lately, so we can have more stuff to talk about on Saturday mornings. I'm kind of upset with Daisy right now. If she's really out there lashing out and talking crap about men, because I don't have a problem personally with Rey or with Daisy. I think she's a solid actress, and she does what she does fairly well. So for her to go down that route is disappointing. I don't want to put her in the same category as Amanda Stenberg and all these other activist chicks. I don't want to do that. But if that's the road she's choosing, then fine. Star Wars in general is just something I'm over right now, and I don't really honestly care if they ever make a new Star Wars product again. And I never thought those words would come out of my mouth, but it's just how I feel. I've got better things to do with my life right now. So there you have it.
Yeah, I don't know, because I remember the post that Tom was referring to where Daisy talked about how it was like toxic men that didn't like her character. Mm-hmm. I didn't really read it as like she was attacking. I think she was just kind of repeating talking points that were given to her by Lucasfilm. But
she
Tom
literally low-key calls us all misogynists if we don't like her character.
Yeah.
That's literally what she said. She said, I can't help the way men view some women or view women. That's basically calling somebody a misogynist, disregarding any and all logical reasons why you couldn't like Rey other than she's a fucking woman. That's what she's saying.
Well, I mean, she's not pulling a Brie Larson or an Amanda Stenberg or Steinberg. I forget how to pronounce her name.
Just because nobody's talking about it doesn't mean it's not true.
Yeah.
I'm not saying it's not true, but she's not like aggressively attacking male fans. I think that she was just repeating some type of talking point that Lucasfilm gave her.
Why are you sticking up for her?
Yeah, what are you doing?
Not sticking up for her. It's just
sticking up for her,
very
man.
different.
Do you want me to go get the quote?
Yes, yeah. Link it in the private chat. We'll show it to everyone. But as we're talking, before we get into our next topic, I want to give a big shout out to Mexican Iron Man, dropping $5, $4.99 for his weekly DEI contribution from a Mexican fan. Appreciate you, Mexican Iron Man. Yep.
I can go get that burrito now on my way to work. It's awesome.
Old Man Rising for $2. Daisy lashing out could well indicate canceled. Again, I don't think she really lashed out, but that might just be my interpretation of it. Foxhound for £199. Dutch is so bored of Star Wars, he changed his name.
Preach, brother. This is so true. This
Yes.
is so true.
We no longer dead name Matt Vader 74.
Mhm.
We do actually. We just did, and I'm sure it'll continue to happen as well.
I don't get offended if people do it. It's okay.
Yeah.
I get it. I understand.
Yeah. You're one of the more accepting trans name
Yeah.
Don't
persons.
stop.
Just put it out
Put
there.
the T word on my name. We're gonna have problems, Odin. My transition to Dutch Butters is almost complete.
Yeah, just change your name to a Dutch Pineapple, and Odin will leave you alone.
Pineapple butter.
Pineapple butter. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah,
So
we are thinking about putting out a new product line of Dutch butter. So be looking for that here in the near future.
yeah. So this is the link that Tom just gave us about the breakdown from Bounding into Comics about this tweet that Daisy made. I'll see if I can add that to the description after we're done with the live stream. I really hate how Bounding into Comics has like their weird
Yeah, I fixed it with my
pattern.
thing here.
Oh,
You want me to share
enhance.
There you go. Enhance.
So what part are
Okay.
you looking for? Yeah, she was asked about she pays little attention to more aggressive criticisms of her character because she accepts that she cannot change the way some men look at women. That sounds to me like it's pretty much low-key calling people who have any problems with her character a misogynist without taking into any regard that they could possibly have any other reason that they dislike her other than she's a woman.
Yeah, but I don't know if that's a specific attack type thing. I think that might just be a comment made from ignorance, but agree to disagree, I guess.
At
on
least
that
it's
one.
not a diss track. I feel like that's the standard we have now. If it's not a
Yeah.
diss track, is it really a criticism? I don't know.
All right, guys. Well, since we're already talking about Star Wars, I want to talk about another Star Wars bit of news that dropped this week, which is basically it turns out that the Acolyte was an even bigger failure than we previously knew because they spent way more money on it than was previously reported. Now, I want to give a big shout out to the guys over at That Park Place, Dubdy Dubs, and Jonas J. Campbell. They are doing the Lord's work over there because if you guys are interested in Disney news, Star Wars, Marvel, Pixar, all that stuff, thatparkplace.com is the place to go for all the best news and scoops and analysis with that company. And they have this headline here where basically, I believe Valiant Renegade and Jonas J. Campbell dove into a recent tax filing from the company that produced The Acolyte, the production company, I should say. And it turns out that the real cost of the Acolyte production was actually $230 million US dollars, as opposed to the reported $180 US million dollars. And again, if you guys want to dive into this stuff, highly recommend you read the article. It is linked in the description of this channel. Now, one thing that I do want to point out, and in Valiant Renegade's video that he did with Jonas J. Campbell, they actually dive into this, is that the reason that Lucasfilm and Disney shoot so much stuff over in the UK and Pinewood Studios and things of that nature is because the UK has a tax credit for film production, and you can basically make back at least 25% of your budget after taxes. And so the real cost of the Acolyte was $230 million, but if you deduct the amount of money that they saved by shooting over in the UK, it does work out to roughly around $180 million. So there's a little bit of wiggle room there, but the idea here is that the actual cost of this horrible, horrible Star Wars TV show, which looked like it was shot on an iPhone in someone's garage, was close to the cost of an entire AAA movie, which I just find crazy.
Kaliki Oki having kind of hammers it in this chat. It's a conversion issue.
I don't think it's so much of a conversion. Like if it cost them $230 million, once you deduct the money that they got back from the UK government, which works out to roughly 25% of what they spent, it does come into around 180 million US dollars, I believe.
Here's all I know is that Spirit Halloween store got a really good deal on the costume for this thing. So
yeah,
but
as the only Brit on the panel, I want to throw this to Mr. Random Film Talk. Mr. Random, what's your take on how much the Acolyte cost, UK film credits in general? Do you know anything about those?
I don't know, but I mean, basically, from what you're saying there is it's the difference between how much it cost them versus how much they spent on it.
Yes.
Which, I mean, yeah, honestly, my view on that with the Acolyte is pretty much the same as my view on Rings of Power. There is no way that that money ended up on screen, or there's no way that all of that money ended up on screen. I don't know how you can possibly spend, like this article says, $231 million. However much that is per episode, $28 million per episode on something that comes out looking as amateurish as the Acolyte. It's ridiculous.
That's almost 3 Godzilla -1s.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Has there been any islands bought by some obscure Lucasfilm executive?
Here's the thing:
somewhere?
is we already kind of have an answer as to where this money goes. We've been getting the answer subtly through various means. I can't remember the director, but the guy who did the Roadhouse movie recently,
Doug
what's his
Liman.
name? Doug Liman. He's one of the people kind of keyed us in this. We've talked to Gary Tunnicliffe, who told us this is the same basic thing that used to happen back in the day when they would do this stuff. Basically, when a studio gives the money to a production company or a production to make the movie, a lot of times a good portion of it, up to half of it sometimes, goes right into the pockets of the producers for the cost of basically doing business or whatever you want to call it. And that's kind of what happened, like specifically with that Roadhouse movie. They were like, they were going to take away our money, but we got $100 million up front. In the Apple movie, the one Argyle, same kind of thing. They got $100 million for nothing. The movie only cost $100 million to make. The other $100 million was just the cost of doing business, right? Like that's where this money is going. So I'm sure you check with all these producers and stuff like that, production companies, houses, places, things like that. That's where this money's going. But I got to ask Random how he feels about his tax money going to fund some of this shit.
Yeah, pretty bad. I can't say that I like paying taxes, but obviously, I do it. It's a fact of life.
Aren't you glad you could help sustain productions like this?
Yeah, I mean, I guess so. I don't know. I guess I'd rather it go on something like this than something just utterly insane that is not, because at least some people enjoyed the Acolyte. It is entertainment. It's not, spending it on, like, I don't know, building bombs to go and bomb people or something like that. I guess I would rather it be spent on a TV show.
Or like here in the States, our tax dollars go to, transition people in state prisons. And so,
right.
Well, I mean, the way I understand it, Tom, is basically the money that they get on credits is basically the money that they paid into the system that the government then pays them back.
Yeah.
So like, it's not like British citizens are being like bilked for Disney's failures. It's
not like the BBC or anything like that.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Not like the BBC.
I'm guessing it's similar to, like, because when Peter Jackson made the Lord of the Rings trilogy, part of the reason why he filmed that in New Zealand is, one, for all of the locations and everything, but also there was a tax incentive to do so. And then the same thing happened with the Hobbit movies. And I'm guessing it's a similar thing to what we're talking about here with the Acolyte, where it is, I guess he's incentivized to do it because, I mean, the example of the Lord of the Rings, look at what that has done to tourism in New Zealand. Whether that will happen with the Acolyte in the UK.
Disney just does it in Lucasfilm because it's cheaper there. That's the main thing. But
they have that long history at Pinewood Studios with filming Star Wars stuff there. But in addition to that, basically, they have to employ a certain amount of UK film crews and stuff like that in order to be eligible for these tax credits. So it helps ensure, like, local jobs and things of that nature in the UK. So there's a lot of benefit for the UK to basically incentivize Disney and Lucasfilm to, like, shoot over there. And a lot of UK union people are very good at what they do. They've been doing it for a long time. That's all they do. And so, like, it's easy to crew up out there for a lot of film productions. But Odin, one of the interesting things about this Park Place report and the Valiant Renegade YouTube video where he breaks this down is that they actually go through the income filing for Blue Stockings Limited, which is basically the UK shell company that they produce the Acolyte through. And basically they say that they made back about £35 million in tax credits after, spending a bunch of money to actually, like, film the Acolyte. So I can see where like there's a lot of confusion as to like what the exchange rate was when they were like actually spending the money versus what it is now, and trying to figure out like, what the conversion rate is from
They
pounds
don't
to
actually
dollars.
convert the money, though. That's the other thing people need to understand. It's not like they're taking U.S. money, moving it over to Britain or the UK or whatever, and converting it there. It's basically they have set up shit there already. That's kind of what it's all about. So
Yeah, like they go through UK banks to finance
exactly,
most of the stuff.
yeah, it's
and
all
things of that
over
nature.
there. So you got to keep that in mind too.
I
So
mean,
it's not like it's
they've been filming Star Wars at Pinewood since day
forever.
one, right? So
Yeah, but the thing is like, so like they take out loans from UK banks to finance this stuff that they then have to like pay back. So because the pound sterling is basically like, at a higher conversion rate than the US dollar, it does cost them more to shoot over there, but then they get, at least 25% of that back after taxes. So it can be a good incentive for them. But I want to get Odin's take on this. Odin, when you're looking at these numbers, what does this tell you about the Acolyte? Because it actually cost way more in practical application than it did after, like they got these rebates and stuff like that.
Oh, absolutely. It's like a double-edged sword for me when it comes to this, because one, I love that they are filming in the UK, because one of the rules is that you have to, in your filing of your taxes, it's public information basically, and so therefore we get to see how much Disney is actually spending on these projects. And I think that that is a beautiful thing, because they will have these projections and these claims, and then all of a sudden the truth will come out. And there are some really good people out there that, hunt down the names of their production companies and are able to find out the actual numbers. I'm just reminded again about how The Rise of Skywalker cost $416 million production budget alone before even spending anything on marketing. That's the reason why, even though that film made $1 billion at the box office, it still lost well over $120 million by the end of its run, because of how much money they wasted on that project. So I'm not really surprised to hear that this show cost $230 million. However, it is surprising to the point that this series cost about as much as Rogue One did as an individual film before marketing, about $232 million or so. So this is, I think, the ultimate reminder that Kathleen Kennedy is the only reason why any of this stuff is still happening, because you just look at how much money they are wasting. They overspend on everything they do. And again, Disney in general has a spending problem, and that's the reason why you see all of their animated films tend to start at a minimum of like $150 million to $200 million, when you could easily do the same quality, if not better, even quality product, doing it much, much cheaper, doing it in different locations, right? But they just want to spend all the money, and maybe it's a pride thing, maybe it's because we're Disney and so the product has to be this expensive, it has to be the highest quality of all. But if you don't have good content, if you don't have good writing, none of that really matters. And so they just piss away all this money. Disney is, I think, the worst example of this fact, because they have been losing a lot more money consistently for a lot longer than even the likes of Marvel, who only more recently have been in that money loss game. But this is just, again, a reminder that the only reason why Kathleen Kennedy still has a job is clearly because she has enough power and influence to be able to stave off any attempt to push her out.
So, Mr. Butters, in this article here, it says, according to UK tax filings, Lucasfilm has already spent at least 362 million American dollars making Andor, a show that very few watch, but many see as the best Disney Plus Star Wars. Outside of Star Wars, Kathleen Kennedy has spent almost $170 million making a Willow reboot for Disney Plus, only for Bob Iger to wipe the show from existence to take the expense as a complete loss for tax purposes.
That might be the only show that made him any money at the end of the day, if you think about it, just because of the tax break from shelving it.
Yep. I think it says that it was like a 500 million. No. Anyway,
it didn't really make them money, but it didn't lose as much as what I meant. Yeah,
just a lot of money.
Yeah. So, Mr. Butters, it seems like Lucasfilm keeps throwing good money after bad when it comes to these awful Star Wars shows. What's your take on the Acolytes costing way more than was originally reported?
My take? I don't have a take. What? Come on. We ask a take on what
he's not feeling good. Would you leave him alone?
Yeah, they waste a lot of money at Lucasfilm. That's my take. They waste a lot of money. And I wish they would at least, if they're going to waste the money, they should at least try to make something good that people actually want to see.
Who was it?
So
Rosario Dawson or not Rosario Dawson? what's her face, the other chick on the Mandalorian, who said that basically what they get for
Katie Sackhoff?
Katie Sackhoff, yeah, basically said what they get for catering on the set of Star Wars is what they spent for their entire budget on
On Battlestar. Yeah.
on Battlestar. Yeah,
Yeah,
I don't think she's kidding.
Yeah, I don't either. I don't know what to say to these things, man. It's just money that is just unimaginable to normal humans. You know, it's just paper. It's nothing. I don't understand how they can justify wasting this much money. It's insane. So I can't relate.
Wolf
I
of Wall
think they
Street.
look at it as political contributions. Actually, I feel like these are just like, you know, under the table propaganda expenses, right? Like they don't honestly care if it succeeds or not. They just want to get their message out there, right?
Right. These are people that do all this kind of stuff that just don't have any respect for the kind of money that they're dealing with. It's these people that I watch down here on the Las Vegas Strip gamble millions of dollars away like it's toilet paper. They just don't. It's a different way of thinking about things that I cannot comprehend. So, and
it's a lot of money without any moral structure either. And I
Right.
think that's the other problem, right? Is that you have these multi-million, multi-billion-dollar people, corporations, et cetera, and they are creating product without any actual soul, any actual
Right.
basis in morality. That's why you typically see them pushing these agenda-driven films, where even if it's not necessarily political, it's at least nihilistic in its thinking, and it leads to the things like, hey, the Star Wars Jedi are not actually the good guys. There is no such thing as good, and
Right.
evil is just a matter of perspective. And so that's what makes it even worse, though. It's rich people with an agenda to push their own nihilistic depression onto everybody else.
Well, one person who definitely benefited from the Acolyte, Tom, is Amanda Stenberg, or Mandela Stenberg, excuse me. But basically, like, you know, on Twitter recently, like she was at some type of event where she was basically showing off her boobies, and she got like a lot of attention from that. And if she hadn't done the Acolyte, nobody would care. But she took advantage of the controversy. She did her diss track. She, you know, came out as non-binary or whatever the heck she is.
She did?
Queer. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Aren't they all baseline by now?
Yeah, something like that. But or
God,
you know, at least forward-facing by. You know, just I say it, but I don't really practice it. Like when it comes to this girl, it's like she comes from a very rich family. Her dad is like a very wealthy Jewish guy who got her roles in Hollywood and stuff like that. But she constantly goes out there.
Jewish and black.
Wow.
Yeah, she goes out there and accuses people of racism and toxicity and all this stuff. And this has really raised her profile, don't you think? So wouldn't you say the Acolyte actually helped her career?
I mean, in a way, yes. Like, I mean, we're at a point now, and I've brought this up before, where doing anything bad does not kill your career as an actor or director now in most cases. In most cases. Now, there are exceptions to the rule, but I mean, it used to be you'd throw out a stinker or two as an actor and a director, writer, whatever, your career's over, right? They only give you so many shots. It's like 2-3 strikes and you're out. Nowadays, you can deliver garbage after garbage after garbage after garbage, blame everybody else, and you're fine. And that's what, I mean, she kind of falls in that same category that Vince Vaughn was talking about with producers, where, you know, he's like, they could sit there and go, well, you can't blame me because I did IP, right? So blame IP. In this case, like, yeah, it's the same thing. It's even like when, not to go hit on Daisy Ridley some more, like we were earlier talking about her, but like when she was going around saying, I haven't got a career anymore because of Star Wars. It's like, bitch, you're working more than most women do in Hollywood.
Yeah.
The
She
hell
didn't have
are
a
you
career before
talking
Star
about?
Wars. Yeah.
Yeah, well, not only that, but you look at her career. She was even making movies still during COVID when a lot of actors weren't. So it's like, I don't know what the hell she's talking about. And I mean, so here again, you got another person who benefited from controversy. I mean, honestly, she's one of the few I've seen take advantage of it. What's her face who played Rose Tico? She kind of, you know, retracted it.
Kelly Marie Tran.
Kelly Marie Tran feels like she kind of, you know, pulled away from the spotlight after all this stuff.
Well, it was all this toxic fans that attacked her.
Yeah, we know it. That we know what she was talking about. If you actually read the, you know, and I know what you're getting at, you know, but
oh boy,
if you actually read what she's saying it was Hollywood that made her feel that way, not the people. But yeah, So at the end of the day, I agree with you. I think she's taking advantage of the situation, just like a lot of these folks have over the past couple of years. I mean, even my former writing partner used to say the same kind of stuff about a lot of, he just happens to be black, and he used to say a lot of the same kind of crap about a lot of people, especially people like Ava DuVernay and people like that who were taking advantage of the system and the situation, right? Like, oh yeah, there's systematic racism, all right, against white people. That's basically where we're at on that respect. But no, at the end of the day, she spun this into the victim narrative that it is, just like everybody else has that's benefited from it. She's benefited more than Moses Ingram has so far. I mean, I don't understand also where people feel like just running around in their underwear is a fashion statement lately, but whatever. Put a bra on.
I mean, it wasn't even underwear. Like, you could see everything.
Yeah, it's like a slip, basically, and that's it. Like,
I just looked at it. I approve.
You looked at it for a good 5 minutes and concentrated.
It's degenerate
and then
crap. It
then
goes
you
back to what I was saying
washed up.
before. These are people with no morals whatsoever. It's disgusting.
I have the exact same outfit. I'm gonna wear it out to work tonight. So
Why does that not surprise me?
You guys know what isn't disgusting? Our super chat. So we got R to the Icky for $9.99. So they spent everything on the Acolyte and cost them even more of what little dignity Disney has left. Great panel today. Hope you're all having a great Saturday. Also, I want to give a big shout out and well wishes to R2. He's dealing with some health issues right now. We're all here for you, buddy. We're praying for speedy recovery and hope that you get better soon. Yeah. But really appreciate your support, R2, longtime follower of the show and supporter and all that good stuff. Mecha J, member for 3 months. This is a big problem with Disney under Iger. They can't help themselves but overspend and push these huge budgets. Well, when you got all that money, might as well spend it, right?
might as well.
Might as well. Then Late Night with Cap podcast, JT Gunn, a member for 17 months. What up, nerds? What up,
What's
JT?
up, JT?
Good to see you. And Way Too Dumb Motherfucker Gentleman, member for 1 month. Entertainment, also precious. Changed it has. Disney, Hollywood, all woke now. Spewing things we don't like. No, not at all.
Oh, you're killing me.
You do it just way too like
Way too stereotypical.
not so much stereotypical, but just light.
You have to go back to
No, I think so. No, you got to make it like really mean something. Like entertainment, oh so precious. Changed it as Disney, Hollywood, all woke
There
now.
you go.
Spewing things we do
Star
not
Wars.
like.
So sorry,
No,
South Park's version.
Not at all.
No, gotta go full Mifune on it, basically.
Yeah, or you do. It's either that or Miyagi. Entertainment, also precious.
Yeah.
See, no, he doesn't talk like that. So
Wow.
that's like, yeah.
Oh, entertainment. Oh, so precious. Yes. Hi.
I'm gonna go take a nap now.
All right, guys. Well, while you take a nap, we've got another thing that we're going to be talking about, which might put our audience to sleep. That's okay, because we're going to talk about it, which is the Rings of Power or the Rings of Failure Part 2.
Rings of failure.
Rings of Failure. So
I like
for
that
those
George the Manslayer, George Molo, the Giant Slayer, has been calling it panderings of power. So I
Panderings
suggest
of
we call
power.
it from now on.
So, guys, you know that when season 1 of Rings of Power came out, Salty Saturday, the expert panel of nerds, we went episode by episode, right? Every single episode we did a dedicated breakdown to. This year, when season 2 premiered, it dropped 3 episodes at once. And everyone was like, I don't want to watch this anymore. But I was like, guys, let's just watch 1 episode. Let's talk about it. So I forced everyone to watch 1 episode. Of course, Tom didn't do it, but whatever. And then we got on here and we talked about it. And after that 1 episode, I genuinely tried to watch episode 2. And I got to the earthquake and bada boom, bada doom, whatever. And I was like, I can't. I just can't. This is it broke all the windows. Why can't they go up on the surface and grow crops? Do they have to grow crops underground? I don't get it. Anyway, at that point, I was just like, I'm done. I can't watch this anymore. And this expert panel of nerds has blissfully not been watching season 2 of Rings of Power. But you know who has? is our guest today, Mr. Random Film Talk.
Hello.
He does an excellent job of breaking down every horrible episode of this show, season 2, on his channel. And in fact, I get more out of watching his breakdowns of these videos, which are actually longer than the actual episodes themselves, than I do watching this show. So I wanted to take a minute, because those of you out there who watch Salty Saturdays probably don't bother to watch Rings of Power either. So, Mr. Random, can you bring us up to speed on what's happened in season 2 so far and what your overall take of Rings of Failure is up to this point?
Oh, Jesus. So how quick do you want this recap to be? Because
At least half hour.
If you need any help, I've also unfortunately been watching it as well, because it is still homework for FNT. So
Gary's making you watch.
Okay.
yes.
So, well, we don't know exactly what happens at the end, because episode 7 has only just come out. I'm working on the video for it at the moment, but basically, I mean, do I need to go into what happened in season 1, or are we just going to assume that everyone knows how it ends, how season 1 ends?
Well, everyone here on the panel knows how season 1 ended, which is the creation of Mordor after
By a giant mousetrap.
by a giant river into a volcano. So yeah.
Okay. So right, pretty much I've got a couple of notes for each episode. So in episode 1, Galadriel completely escapes the consequences of her actions in season 1. She admits to having accidentally, not seen through Sauron's disguise, but she never, even by episode 7, she never actually has to come to terms with the fact that she concealed Sauron's identity after knowing that he was Sauron. And this leads to all of the misery in season 2. We have a really strange "Let My People Go" scene where Sauron returns to Mordor, and I still don't know why he did it. But he basically goes back to Mordor, says, "Let my people go," and they're obviously not his people. He's pretending that he's a human. And that has gone nowhere, but it's required for the plot to happen. Episode 2, Sauron returns to Eregion. He turns into Anatar, and he tricks Celebrimbor with the fantastic line, "You too can be the Lord of the Rings." Everyone clap, please. Literally, that's a line. Yep. And
that's a Jeb Bush moment right there. Please clap. Please.
I mean, there are elements to the scene that I don't mind, but especially once you get towards the later in the series, it relies heavily on Celebrimbor just being a fucking idiot.
Well, also Random, don't they fast travel? It's like they just teleport across Middle Earth.
Yeah, so the fast traveling, I haven't yet come to terms with exactly how it works. And I'm going to, because at the end of my series, I do like an autopsy where I go through like everything that I haven't covered. But
yeah.
As far as I'm aware at the moment, the only thing I can't account for is how long it actually takes to craft the rings, because we haven't been told. So I'm going to speculate and we'll work it out. But essentially, we know how long it takes to get from Eregion to Lindon. We know how long it takes to get from Eregion to Khazad-dûm. We know how long it takes to get from Eregion to Mordor, which essentially means that by the time the elves have worked out, oh shit, Sauron's probably in Eregion, we should do something, Sauron is still on his way to Mordor at the end of season 1. Because of how distances work. He then ends up in Mordor and gets tortured for a period of time, probably not a couple of days, probably a couple of weeks. He then heads back to Eregion, which is another week, which means it doesn't line up at all. So the only explanation is teleportation. Although saying that, in episode 7, we do get some time-bending, Inception, dream level bullshit. Which
Sauron just reloaded his last save checkpoint. I mean, that's just how it happens.
Yeah, he's basically going like this, while everyone else is like going a normal speed. It's the most ridiculous thing I've ever seen in my life.
And like, I honestly feel like, because the last, I think it is literally the final shot that you get of season 1 is Halbrand / Sauron in Mordor looking at Mount Doom, because obviously they wanted that shot to end the series. It's like, oh, he has now become Sauron, and we're going to move into season 2. Because they included that shot, they created a problem for themselves in season 2, because Sauron needs to be in Eregion to make the rings. That's what season 2 is. But because, by doing that, they have added 2 weeks to his story, and they can't account for it at all. And they also need to give him a reason to be in Mordor, which they have not done. So it's just nonsense.
Random, in your videos, you actually keep a running tally of all like the problems that or questions you have when it comes to how you break down these episodes. So I just find that very funny because the list just keeps getting longer and longer, and you have multiple lists. So
yeah, so I try and do that with the characters specifically. So character traits, that wasn't even supposed to become a running gag, but when I did my videos on season 1, I thought, well, there's probably going to be some contradictions here, so let's write down everything, and then when a contradiction appears, we can be like, right, you fucked this up. This character has really good hearing until he doesn't have really good hearing. And then you immediately have your references for both, which, I mean, yeah, I thought that was a good idea for, just keeping track of the insanity that is Rings of Power, but it ended up becoming a bit of a running gag, which I quite like. So
yes, because consequences don't matter to any of them, really. I mean,
oh god, yeah,
because you mentioned Galadriel, but it's like also, yeah, Elrond steals the rings at one point, which is the last hope of the Elvish people. He steals them and tries to destroy them, and then what happens? Oh, nothing. He's fine.
Yeah, well, so the way that they get around that is, are you guys familiar with the lore at all, like the Silmarillion, Lord of the Rings books, any of that?
a little bit, yeah.
Okay, so I only am as a result of doing what I do. I haven't actually read them, so it's been very interesting to kind of see things happen in Rings of Power and then find out afterwards how it should have gone. So they have this character, Círdan the Shipwright, who is really old and really wise, and they immediately tell us this is Círdan. He's really old and he's really wise. They then use Círdan to justify why the elves would use the rings that they think Sauron has made. And they say, well, he's really old and he's really wise, and he decided that it was a good idea to use them, so now we're going to use them. It's that amateurish of like storytelling that it's very difficult to imagine how they could possibly have done it worse. It's ridiculous. And then you throw in like the extra elements of like absurdisms, like in episode 3, it's revealed that the orcs have wives and babies, and presumably they have daycare, bus drivers, lollipop ladies. And they
don't want war. And they don't want war either. They just want to live peacefully. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and they've started doing things with that in episode 7, which I don't think is going to pay off properly in episode 8. But there's one particular character who I am a little bit invested in, which is the orc who has the wife and kid. And I can't really tell you why, but his name, according to the subtitles, because he's never named in the show, but in the subtitles, this orc's name is Glug, and I just find that very funny. How like Glug just wants to be happy and live at home. But
yeah, Glug just wants to be left alone. He just doesn't want to pay taxes, wants to live on his land.
Yeah, and if he's got to, chop some heads off,
Unabomber,
enslave some people, then he's part of the job, But like the whole orc family thing and the whole honestly character of Adar seems to be simultaneously built on like the idea that he views the orcs as his children. The audience is supposed to feel sympathy for the orcs. I don't know why they have done that, but that's clearly what they're doing. But then Adar's actions are like, well, in episode 7, this is the big battle that we've just had. He's like, well, I'm just going to tell you all to just infinitely run at the wall until you die. And then later on, I'll be shedding a tear when I give you a funeral. It's completely incoherent. Because I think the arc that they're trying to do with him is they're trying to have him kind of become Sauron throughout the seasons, where he gradually becomes the thing that he wanted to destroy. Because his big disagreement with Sauron is that Sauron doesn't like the orcs and he thinks that they're just a tool, whereas he seems to genuinely love them at the start. But the problem is, in episode 3, you've got Glug with his wife and his baby, and then this big fucking troll walks into the camp and he's killed Adar's messenger, who is an orc, and he throws his head at him. And Adar's just like, oh, all right. Like, he should be distraught that one of his children has just been murdered, but they have no idea what they're doing. So it's complete incoherent garbage.
So what about the Harfoots? Because that was the thing that really just checked me out of every single Rings of Power episode. As soon as the Harfoots come in, I'm just like, gender swapped Frodo and Sam. I just don't care. Like, what the hell is going on here?
There's a prophecy now.
Oh, God.
Prophecy about basically how the Harfoots and what's the name of this other group of hobbits that we've now found?
They're the Stoors.
Is it the Stewars?
Stoor, Stoor.
The Stoor. Oh gosh, so stupid. So on the wall of one of these places, so they actually live in a set location, which the Harfoots find very odd. They're like, well, wait a minute, why aren't you walking, just traveling everywhere, right? But they have their own set home. They've got trees where they have people buried and everything, and all of a sudden,
we ain't gypsies, motherfucker.
Absolutely. And so they come upon this, right? So you have Nori and the other, Sam and Frodo doppelgangers essentially there, and they see this massive beautiful thing, and it's like, oh, this is like a prophecy that there'll be a land where we will build and we will find our home. It'll be green and it'll be full of life, and it's like, oh, so now we've just established that the Harfoots are essentially going to be the ones to find the Shire.
Yeah.
Yeah, like when
Hobbiton.
in season 1, I was kind of expecting that, like, obviously at some point, it feels like, a natural resolution for the Harfoot storyline is you finish it in season, if we get 5 seasons, you finish Nori's story where they just come across the Shire and they're like, oh, this would be a nice place to settle down. And then you just leave that as the cliffhanger. But since what they've done in season 2, the stonks for that have gone through the roof. It's like, that is absolutely going to happen. And I think it's going to happen sooner rather than later. Because what they have done with the Shire is pretty much exactly what they've done with the idea of a Harfoot or a halfling, a hobbit, whatever we want to call them. In the Lord of the Rings and the Hobbit, obviously the whole idea is that it's the most unremarkable of creatures doing some big insane quest, and in the case of the Lord of the Rings, he ends up saving the world. And that's the whole point, is that you don't expect that kind of courage to come from someone like that. And as a result, like, the idea of hobbits it's quintessentially Lord of the Ringsy, which is seemingly all that Rings of Power is interested in doing. So what they did is they had this whole story regarding the forging of the rings, and then you have this totally separate story, which is still yet to be connected, where you have the brave young hobbit who goes on an adventure. They have made the hobbits, like, crucial to the story of Rings of Power, because when it gets connected, it is going to matter. And they've done the same thing with the Shire as well. Because you have to have the Shire, and it has to be really important, because everyone who's watching it is like, oh, it's the Shire, and the Shire is really important to us. And they don't understand that that's not really how it works. I'd call it fan service, but I really don't feel like it's servicing any fans, because the fans are like, what the hell are you doing? So fan service, I don't think is the right word.
Well, what about like the Slim Shady, what's her name, and the evil wizard and all that stuff? They're trying to track down not Gandalf, and how did they handle Tom Bombadil?
I hate Tom Bombadil. I've not read the books again, but, like, my understanding is that Tom Bombadil is a very jolly fellow. He has his boots are orange and his coat is green. I can't remember, but he's just like this weird little goober who lives in the woods, and he just sings songs and he talks to trees. And, like, the whole point of the
barely
character.
remember him from the books, yeah, but I don't know why people made such a big deal out of him, but yeah.
Well, he's supposed to be like the most powerful person in Middle Earth, from my understanding.
But he doesn't really do anything. That's the thing. He's just, like, there, and then you, like, move on. It's like, I don't remember him playing any major role. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. But yeah.
Is he supposed to be like a metaphor for, like, nature and something like that? Like, kind of like the embodiment of that? But in this one, they decided it's a good idea to now make him be the one that teaches this unnamed wizard. Who
not Gandalf.
Yeah, the not Gandalf, the grand elf. I think that was a line at one point that was also used. At one point, you're like, he's a grand elf? Oh, I see what you're doing there. Oh, if they turn him into Gandalf, it's going to be even worse.
Yeah, there we go. That's the line from the book. Old Tom Bombadil was a merry fellow. Bright blue his jacket was, and his boots were yellow. Green were his girdle, and his breecher all of leather. He wore his tall hat and a swan wing feather. I don't think we have any of that in Rings of Power, but honestly, I'm too distracted by how they have decided to characterize this Tom Bombadil guy, because he's a prick. Like, he talks down to not Gandalf, and he kind of assumes that, like, well, everyone just kind of knows that, like, oh, all things belong to themselves. Like, you can't. It's like he's being rude. He doesn't understand how to actually communicate with someone, and he's not. I guess a bubbly type of character. He just seems like the kind of person that if you invited into your house, you'd want him to leave immediately. And I don't know if it's because the character is miscast or because the writers just don't know what they're doing. I have no idea. But that reminds me, actually, one thing that I will mention is they keep ripping lines from the Lord of the Rings, and probably the one that has pissed me off the most is what is it? So, many that live deserve to die. Many that die deserve life. Who are you to give that to them? And they have basically taken that and completely misunderstood the meaning of it. And, like, yeah, maybe not Gandalf is kind of giving. Sorry, maybe Tom Bombadil is giving not Gandalf a test, and he's saying, well, maybe you should let your friends die, because that's the meaning of the sentence when he says it in Rings of Power. But there's no reason why he should accept that, because he's been
Well,
told.
it's also in Rings of Power. It's Gandalf who says that famous line, and it turns out
Lord of the Rings.
he's just It turns out he's just paraphrasing good old Tom Bombadil from his Obi-Wan and Luke training days.
Yeah, and they pretty much do the what is it, Empire Strikes Back thing, where you've got like, oh no, you must stay to complete your training. Like, okay, cool, but you didn't explain why. Because in Star Wars, it's like you've got to stay and complete your training because otherwise Vader will fucking kill you. Like, you literally have to stay and complete your training. Whereas in Rings of Power, it's, well, you've got to stay because you've got to find a magic stick. And that's all we like. Can I do that later? Nope, those are the rules. And that's why he can't go and save his friends. And
If you don't do it right now, then
exactly
you will lose this path forever. So screw your friends, basically.
Yeah, and we don't yet know if he does go to rescue his friends. I mean, he's obviously going to, but that's going to be revealed in episode 8. At which point, I'm guessing Tom Bombadil will show up and be like, "Well done, you're worthy of having a magic stick. Here's your magic stick."
Random, let me ask you this: what's going on with the human story, the Numenorians?
Oh, that's quite funny actually, because they're trying to do like political intrigue, but it's not intriguing in the slightest because they just don't know what they're doing. So the way that the story is supposed to go in very vague terms is that you've got two factions who are kind of competing for rulership over Numenor, the Kingsmen and the Faithful. The Kingsmen have never been mentioned.
You mean the MAGA party?
Pretty well, yeah. Yes, they took your jobs. The elves, the single elf in Numenor is going to turn up and take all your jobs. That's ridiculous. So the Kingsmen have not been mentioned once. They've been referred to as the men of the king, like literally the king's men, but they're not an established faction. The Faithful have been named a couple of times, but that's kind of it. And it turns out that it doesn't really matter who you want to be in charge, because if an eagle shows up, then you win. And maybe that makes a little bit more sense if you read the books, but like, it's the job of Rings of Power to make it make sense to me, the viewer who is watching Rings of Power. And if I see Queen Miriel is getting coronated and Pharazon's like, boo, I want to be in charge, and then the eagle shows up and then they're all like, you can be in charge, then that makes no fucking sense. It's like, why did you bother having a coronation? Did the eagle choose? I have no idea. And then in a later episode, it turns out that their legal process is run by a Cthulhu monster.
Oh gosh, yes. So then, this monster basically, takes her in, or like, is in front of her, spits her out of the water essentially, and all of a sudden now it's like she should be queen, and it's like you go back to Monty Python days. It's like,
did she get her eyesight back?
She's still blind for now. I don't know if that changes, but for now she's
strange
blind.
Women lying in ponds.
One of the weirdest things about season 1 is they tried to make you think that Isildur got killed or something like that, even though like he's the guy who cuts off Sauron's finger with the One Ring in the battle, the final battle. So how did they bring him back?
Oh yeah. So again, that is probably the most confusing cliffhanger. And at this point, there's like hundreds of mini cliffhangers in Rings of Power, and that is the one that I just don't understand why you would even bother, because there's 40, 50 characters in Rings of Power. There's maybe 6 or 7 that definitely cannot die. Isildur is one of them. Why are you wasting our time? But the way that he comes back is his horse homes in on him because it's like a homing missile. We kind of get a line that the horses bond with their riders, which means that they just kind of know where you are at all times. So Elendil, Isildur's father, releases the horse, doesn't follow it. The horse then finds Isildur, who was off-screen, escaped from being squashed by a burning building. He's wandered around for a little bit, and he's got captured by Shelob. Yes, like Shelob, as in from the movies.
Baby
spider. Yeah.
It's a baby Shelob.
Yeah, it's little baby Shelob, but it's not named in the show, but apparently that is meant to be Shelob. But either way, he's been captured by spiders, but hasn't been eaten yet. So then the horse arrives and wakes him up. And it turns out that, wouldn't you just know it? He's been webbed up right next to an orc, and that orc has a knife. So he's able to grab his knife, cut off his web, and escape on his horse after fighting a spider that is able to explode the orc's head, and doesn't do that to Isildur, but that's another story. So yeah, Isildur's back, and he's doing fine. Haven't seen him for the last 3 episodes, thank God, because I hate that character. But it's the whole like subplot. This is the thing with like season 2 of Rings of Power in particular, is season 1 had I think 4 main plots that were kind of interconnected with the Galadriel Sauron stuff. She goes to Numenor, she goes to the Southlands, she goes to the various elven destinations, and it kind of links it together into something that is understandable, even though it doesn't really make any sense. And then second to that, you got the Harfoot stuff that's totally disconnected. Season 2, so far I've counted 8 separate plot lines, and there is no connective tissue really at all. There is no parallel to the Galadriel plot that links everything together.
Let me ask you before we get to the elves, what's going on with the dwarves this season? Because it seems like they're going kind of off their rockers.
Yeah, that is honestly, that's the most disappointing part. It's difficult to be disappointed at Rings of Power because so little of it is worthy of being disappointed of. But like Disa, I think one of the only characters that was passable. I'm not going to say that she was good, but she was passable. Durin, both Durins were at one point the best characters in the show. They didn't make it out of season 1 unscathed, but in season 2, they get hit by an earthquake, which was caused by the volcano. They then immediately start starving to death because the dwarves are idiots and they don't have farms. And when the earthquake happened, they lost access to like mirrors, which meant that they can't grow crops, basically. So off screen, they decide, let's get magic rings from the elves. And then off screen, they decide, let's use them. And it's like, these are some pretty important things that are happening right now. It would be nice to understand why you're doing this. But the writers think that, well, they don't have food. So obviously magic rings, that's a natural, thought process. Within 5 minutes of putting on the evil magical ring, although the magical ring that he doesn't know is evil, King Durin becomes a psychopath who he just wants to acquire all of the gold and literally sit on it like Scrooge McDuck. There is a scene of him having gold dumped at his feet in wheelbarrows. It's insane. It's an idiot's idea of what greed is. And again, King Durin, once upon a time, was an okay character, but now they've slapped a ring on him and now he's an idiot. And the bit that I find really quite funny about it is that like everything that Sauron does, he generally doesn't make mistakes. A lot of the time he'll know things that he can't know, but he doesn't really make mistakes. Inexplicably, he has made dwarven rings that are so evil that when you put them on, you become a dribbling wreck within the space of about 5 minutes. And his plan is to use these to like enslave the dwarven realms. Why would anyone put that ring on after seeing what it's done to King Durin? I have no idea.
Also, like when I tried watching episode 2 and the whole like sun mirror thing happened where like they couldn't grow crops, I was like, wait a minute, there's such a thing as root vegetables. Like you could grow potatoes and carrots and stuff like that without sunlight. But in addition to that, I was like, don't they have like tons of resources that they could trade for food? Like why do they need to grow crops and starve? So
yes, they do. Unfortunately, we get this is mentioned. It doesn't make any sense, but this is mentioned in episode 2. Disa states that basically the king has forbidden trading with the outside world. I have no idea why. And bear in mind, this happened before he put the ring on. So we can't even blame that. Because basically Durin is like, this meal is shit. It's like last year's bread. Why don't we trade from the surface or trade with the surface? And Disa's reply is, oh, that's a really good idea. I wonder who can convince the king to let us do that. It's like, what, has he banned it from happening? Does he want you to starve to death? Like what it doesn't, it's necessary for the plot to happen, but it requires that every character involved is an idiot, because if the king had banned it, you fucking do it anyway.
Well, speaking of idiots, I want to get to the elves here because there's a lot of stuff going on. So we got Don Limanor, who I guess came back. His human side piece died off screen in between the 2 seasons. So
that was very funny.
I need to interject here really quickly. I just need to insert one word into the conversation. Then I'm going to have Kadish go look it up for his potato comment. The word is photosynthesis. And that should be able to tell you everything you need to know about what you need to do to grow root vegetables. So, while you're getting
I know it
in the chat.
I know what photosynthesis is, but like potatoes don't need sunlight.
Yes, they absolutely do need sunlight to grow. You cannot grow shit without sun.
It's the root. Literally.
Well, mushrooms don't need sunlight, though. Am I correct there?
Well, mushrooms are a fungus. They're not a plant.
Yeah.
Well, because we do see a single mushroom in Khazad-dûm. Unfortunately, we only see one, but why they're not living off the things, I have no idea.
But also,
Sorry,
like,
I just wanted to interject that in there.
What's
Sunlight is
also-
very important.
Yeah, what also is terrible about the whole rings in general is that they've turned each of the rings now into essentially the one ring of power from Lord of the Rings.
Yeah.
Like, where it's like it speaks to them, it calls to them, and everything like that. It's like, look, I understand, especially with like the lore, like the dwarvish rings are supposed to obviously like be the thing that brings them under his control, under the power of the One Ring. But when you're turning it literally into a, hey, remember when this happened in Lord of the Rings? Remember? I remember. And like that's all you're going with. It's like, this is ridiculous.
But also, like,
Potatoes.
even if it is trying to be the same thing, which I think it very clearly is, it's because there's no basis for that in the lore, and it doesn't even make sense in universe, because why would Sauron do that? But in the Peter Jackson films, like, Frodo is carrying the One Ring for basically 2 entire movies before he really starts to lose his shit, which is in Osgiliath, where he nearly gives it to the Nazgul and he pulls his sword on Sam. Compare that to, again, King Durin puts the ring on. 5 minutes later, he's a dribbling idiot who wants to mine the entire contents of the mountain so that he can sit on it. God only knows what is going to happen when the rings for men are forged and someone puts one on. They're just going to immediately turn into a Nazgul at this rate. Like, I don't know how that's going to go. But yeah, God, regarding the elves, who was it? Arondir. Yeah, so Bronwyn was his lady, and yeah, she died completely off screen. The reason why that happened is because the actress had better things to do, which fair enough. But given how season 1 ended, they were absolutely not done with that character, because it does not make any narrative sense to kill her off in the way that they did. So why they didn't recast her, I don't know. And if they were going to kill her off, you kill her off in the big battle episode of season 1, because then you've got, like, you can farm a lot more drama out of that scene, and you can actually have meaningful consequences in that, holy shit, Bronwyn just got killed. Like, that would matter. But they've saved that for season 2, and it's like, yeah, she's kind of gone. Whoops. And they have a funeral, and then she's not mentioned again. Yeah. Arondir himself has not really done anything either, because what happens after the funeral is Isildur and Theo run off and fuck about. One of them gets lost, and then he has to rescue them, and that's pretty much it.
Yeah, Don Levinless comes in a couple of scenes, he does some flippity-doos, kills some people, and then he's gone again. And the whole point is that he's trying to find Adar because he wants to kill him on behalf of his lady, essentially.
Yeah, and the bit that actually just happened, I remembered, because he shows up in Eregion for reasons that partially make sense and partially don't. And he rescues Galadriel. Had he not shown up then, Galadriel would be dead. And Galadriel's like, hey, thank you for showing up. We need to go into Eregion because we got to kill Sauron. And his response is, I'm here to kill Adar, which is like, okay, fair enough. That might be your reason. But the writers have completely forgot that every elf, basically, thinks that Sauron has been dead for thousands of years, which means that Arondir's response should be, what? Sauron's alive and he's in Eregion? What the hell are you talking about? But he doesn't. He's just like, no, I've got something else I want to do. The writers just have completely forgotten the world that they've set up, and they think that every character knows what they know and knows what we know.
Also, didn't Elrond get busy with Galadriel this season?
So, yeah, in episode 7, basically what happens is Galadriel gets captured because she's an idiot. Elrond then shows up to negotiate because Adar makes that happen. And he basically says, you need to give me Galadriel's ring, and in exchange, I will spare Galadriel. You can have her. And Elrond refuses, because that would mean that Eregion is going to get destroyed. So obviously, and he says, "Can I go and say goodbye to my friend?" And he does, and they kiss, and it is. You could interpret it as platonic, but given the way it is shot, given the accompanying music, given how long it lasts, it seems like these characters are deeply in love from out of nowhere.
And it should be noted that in Tolkien's work, Elrond is basically the son-in-law of Galadriel. Is that correct?
Yeah. So again, this isn't stated in the Peter Jackson films or in Rings of Power yet, but Elrond, my understanding is he goes on to marry Galadriel's daughter. So, I mean, the writers are obviously aware that that's the case. There's no way that they don't know that. But because Rings of Power hasn't actually had that happen, it's not. I don't have a particular problem with it. If they were in a full-on, romantic relationship, then I wouldn't have a problem with them doing that. The problem that I have with it is that they basically use they take something that the audience is subconsciously going to be like, this is off limits because we know who these characters are. They can't kiss. And at the same time, they have not had any romantic interest in each other for 2 fucking seasons. So them kissing is just not going to happen.
Well, also Galadriel canonically is supposed to be married at this point, right? Isn't she already supposed to have like a husband and daughter?
Yeah, that's a different factor though, because it basically comes down to the way that Rings of Power has decided to adapt Galadriel. Because yes, she is, or I guess was married to Celeborn, who is alive at this point in the lore. In Rings of Power, he has gone missing, and he's mentioned once, and she hasn't tried to find him, but we have to assume that she thinks he's dead, but inexplicably hasn't gone to find him, which is just broken characterization. Especially because everything in season 1 happens because she decided to avenge her brother Finrod's death, but doesn't seem to care to do anything about her husband.
And essentially, they use the kiss to try to say that's how she gets the item she needs to be able to unlock her chains and escape. And it's like the fact that that's what they use for that makes it even worse.
Well, yeah. So the issue that I would take with that is that when the kiss happens, the audience is probably I had to watch it twice before I got this. I've seen the episode 3 times, and I didn't catch this until the second time. Is that as they're kissing, he hands the lockpick to her, which obviously she goes on to then use, which means that like the writers and showrunners are relying on us being like, holy shit, did they just kiss in order to have us not notice that he handed her the lockpick? The problem is that in universe, that doesn't fucking work because they are surrounded by orcs. One of them is looking directly at them, and Adar is just to the left of the camera off screen. He is obviously going to be watching what's happening, but he just kind of gives her the key and no one notices.
Well, let me ask you this, and then we'll wrap this segment up. So a big selling point of this season was like, oh, we're going to get some battles, some big battles, and it looks like they're gearing up for a orc versus elves battle based around the forge and all this other stuff. Can you give us a rundown of like how that's shaping up?
So it starts at the very. I saw this on Wikipedia. They claimed that it was a 3-episode battle. And like that, to my knowledge, has not been done. It isn't a 3-episode battle. It's a 2-episode battle because episode 6 ends with the catapults being fired and then it cuts off before the first barrage hits the city. Episode 7, which is the one that's just come out, is pretty much the battle from start to end. But it doesn't actually end. It ends with them breaking into the city. So episode 7 is the siege. Episode 8 is going to be, what happens next, the rest of the battle. The setup for the battle is complete nonsense because we're expected to believe that Sauron wants it to happen, but also he needs Eregion to be intact so that he can make the rings, which means that he's artificially imposed a time frame on his evil plan. And I don't know if that's ever going to be explained. I have no clue. Probably not, is my guess. But yeah, the battle itself, it's piss. Like the obvious comparison is, the 2 comparisons that I'm making in my video is Helm's Deep for obvious reasons, and the Battle of the Bastards in Game of Thrones. And like there are definite criticisms that you can make of the Battle of the Bastards from like a writing and character standpoint, but in like pure spectacle for like a battle sequence with TV budget, I think it was like $11-12 million to make that. There is nothing better. The Battle of the Bastards is probably the best battle sequence I've ever seen for that kind of money. This battle sequence cost in excess of $50 million, and it looks like something that a child came up with. We never get any of like the big epic establishing shots. So like on the one hand, it's epic. It's like, okay, it makes you feel that there is some weight going on. You've got thousands of people running into thousands of people, and it makes you actually get invested in this like, holy shit, like big things are happening. But on the other hand, it has like a practical purpose because it shows you where everyone is. And it means that you can understand, oh, we've got a couple of hundred guys on horses versus 10,000 guys with sticks. But we don't get any of that. There is not a single wide establishing shot during the battle. You get, I think, 2 before the battle starts. That is it. And you compare that to Helm's Deep. Again, every now and then, whenever the battle escalates, you've got the battering ram, the explosion, the ladders, all of that. You have these nice wide shots where you can clearly see what is happening. You get the same thing in the Pelennor Fields, and the Hobbit movies are not good, but you get the same thing in the battle scenes in the Hobbit movies. In this, it's like they just didn't know how to put a sequence like this together. And the end result is that it is, there's a whole bunch of problems with it, which I can't really go into, but the main takeaway is that it is incredibly monotonous.
And they try to play Jenga to take down the wall, essentially. Like they're taking literally a pillar at a time out of the wall because they cannot destroy it, even though it's established that they actually have a catapult that can, 1, go the entire length of the river, and 2, go long enough to hit a giant mountain, which is several hundreds of meters away. So they have the most powerful catapult ever to be established.
Odin, don't you remember in season 1 where they took down a stone watchtower with a rope?
Oh, that's right.
They just pulled it right. They tugged on it, and that whole thing just like fell over.
Yeah.
Well, I would love to talk about Rings of Power more with Mr. Random here, but unfortunately, we got to move on. If you guys are interested in his breakdowns, I can't recommend them enough. Go check out his channel. He's got 6 episodes up already. He's working on episode 7. There's 1 more episode left in the season, so hopefully it'll be a big grand finale that he'll break down for us, because I don't watch the show. I just watch his breakdowns.
I also want to talk about potatoes more.
Yeah.
Potatoes.
We'll get to that. We'll get to that in a second, because it's actually part of a super chat. Which, first of all, Darth Maul's lower half for €5. Last night I watched the Lord of the Rings extended trilogy on the big screen. After leaving the theater, I saw what happened in Rings of Power. The contrast couldn't be bigger.
You were at the movie theater for the entire extended trilogy?
Damn.
That's a day, bro.
Mm-hmm.
Yep,
That's
that is a day. And we got Latino Slant Polly for $1.99. Asian accents. Why? This is why they hate gringos.
No, you got to read it.
I do it. I'm out.
Asian accent. This is why they hate the gringos.
Very good.
Very good
accent. Hopefully, we'll be able to get Polly on the show shortly. But here's your potato thing, Mr. Butters. Art to the Eki for $4.99. What about The Martian? Matt Damon grew potatoes on Mars without sunlight. Just used Mars mud, his shipmates' poo, simple hydrogen. LOL.
Yeah. The sun still shines.
There's still sunlight on Mars.
It's not dark.
You still need sunlight for photosynthesis.
Part of the whole thing of terraforming Mars is growing algae.
You can argue you don't need a lot of it, but they still need it.
I mean, Dr. Google is saying that potatoes need about 8 hours of direct sunlight or artificial light per day.
There you go.
I'm sorry, man. I didn't mean to like cap on you about the whole thing, but the farm boy and me growing up on a ranch, it's like you have to have sun. You have to have sun to grow anything.
Hey, in the writer's room, they don't need sunlight for Rings of Power.
That's what I love about all these
potatoes.
sci-fi things like what Zack Snyder and all those dipshits make, where it's like there's no sunlight. It's like, dude, then we'd all die.
That's
It's like there's no like years and years without sun. It just doesn't work that way.
Turn into Morlocks.
Well, guys, speaking of dying, it turns out Alex Kurtzman might have been fired from Star Trek.
I wish.
There was this rumor, and I do want to emphasize rumor, from a rag in the UK called express.co.uk
that literally nobody else is talking about.
That literally no one else is talking about outside of Twitter. But they've basically said that Alex Kurtzman has surprisingly been exiting Paramount Plus in the anticipation of their takeover by Skydance. Basically, the rumor is that he's leaving ahead of getting fired. So, it's one of those things. I don't put too much stock in this rumor, but I wanted to hear the panel's take on it. Tom, you usually are up on these things. What's your take on Alex Kurtzman possibly leaving Star Trek?
As much as I would love, and I mean love, for this to be true. Because unlike Star Wars, where we go like, who cares if Kathleen Kennedy leaves? What difference is it going to make? Right? Because you still got Filoni, Baloney there and other people involved that are still going to make it crap. If Kurtzman leaves Star Trek, that means there's a chance that things could go better or could be better. And we've even seen some lights depending on how you felt about Picard and whatnot, the season 3. But I can't find anything to support this. Now, there was some higher profile firings, and reportedly up to 50% of Paramount Plus personnel was supposed to be getting the axe. And I was told that some producers close to Star Trek might have gotten released, but the person I talked to who reached out to Skydance said they had not heard anything like this, or there's no validity to Kurtzman being gone or anything like that. And again, I got to reiterate, I've been told from very reliable sources that Secret Hideout has some sort of buy-in to Star Trek now. Like they own a portion of it, or they have to be bought out. So it's not just as simple as just giving him his pink slip, right? Like, and Kurtzman himself is not even employed by CBS. That's another thing that like Script Doctors pointed out before too, which is one thing you got to remember. His company is, is a part of this, but Kurtzman himself personally is not. So them just firing him, that wouldn't happen. It just wouldn't happen like that. Now, if they said that, if we get a report that CBS is parting ways with, Secret Hideout, that's a different story. And we're not hearing anything like this. I think the most highest profile releases they had was like a correspondent or somebody on one of their shows and some producer higher up in the ranks. But I can't find anything to support this as much as I'd like for it to be true.
Now, Mr. Butters, when you saw this story on our call sheet, you immediately got excited. Yeah. And you were like, is this true?
Yeah.
Is this happening?
Then I went and looked at this article you posted, and I go, oh, this is bullshit. This is not true. That looks like something that you and me could like be in the office discussing and go, hey, you want to start some bullshit rumor? And we could like make a fake article and like put a bunch of stuff that we want to put in there and put it out on Twitter and, see if Tom takes the bait and talks about it on his show tomorrow. That's what I kind of feel like this was.
All they did was give me some of my best ratings in a couple of weeks, basically, because I mean, even though I had to sit there and say, yeah, no, as far as I can tell, this ain't fucking true.
Mr. Cock didn't even talk about this thing yet, right? So,
I think he brought it. He may have said something on Twitter, but I'm not even 100% sure. I haven't seen him say anything. So
I think it's nonsense. I think it's just clickbait.
I would go so far as to say that this was cockbait, because I think that this
to be
this
honest,
article,
I think you're right. It was more to debate.
It was debate Doomcock into making a video about it and giving it legitimacy. I tried to read this on my mobile, and the pop-ups were so ridiculous. Yeah, so I want to ask Mr. Random, have you heard of this express.co.uk mag, Express Press?
I have no idea what that is. No.
Okay, so it's not like a well-known UK news
What's
site.
funny is if you click on like the author or any of their other stories, they cover like mostly sports. So you're like scratching your head. Why are they covering Star Trek crap? Like this makes no sense. Yeah.
Yes, he's like, this is like yet another Kathleen Kennedy's getting fired story, except it's Kurtzman this time. So yeah, same kind of deal. It's total clickbait as far as I'm concerned.
All right. Well, I don't want to ask Odin about this because I don't think he cares.
I don't care. I don't care at all.
I do want to ask you about Agatha All Along and this article from Variety that talks about its ratings. So basically, Variety is reporting that Disney is saying Agatha All Along hit 9.3 million views in 1 week. And what's interesting about this article is like they're bragging like 9.3 million views is a big deal, even though it's lower than what the Acolyte got, and in a longer period of time. So in a week, that's 7 days. Most of their Star Wars ratings come out over the course of 5 days. But also, there's how Disney essentially defines a view, which is total runtime divided by so on and so forth. What's interesting about this is that Variety also reported that The Penguin opened to 5.3 million viewers across all of HBO Max's platforms in the first 4 days. And with Disney, I think what they're doing, because they released 2 episodes of Agatha All Along for the premiere, I think that they're combining the viewership of those 2 into that 9.3 million number. And they're being kind of sneaky about, like, they're trying to fudge the numbers is what I'm accusing them of, essentially. So I want to get your take on this, Odin. Do you think that Disney is fudging the numbers? And what do you think this means? Because they've already confirmed that Agatha's not getting a second season.
I mean, at this point, I think all their numbers are always flubbed. So I think that if anything, this is their flubbing, but like clearly by their flubbing these numbers, they are revealing the standards that they have. And yes, it's been confirmed that it's not going to get in second season. However, I do think it is important to have that comparison with the Acolyte, which was canceled because they did have, you know, initial plans that if things went well, they would keep going along. And from some of the numbers that I'm seeing, it is stating, reminding everybody that in the first 5 days, the Acolyte was able to get 11.1 million views in about 5 days. And so I think about that, and then I compare that to the 9.3 million in 7 days. That means that they are less people watching this show than the Acolyte, of which no one was watching. And that Park Place has a pretty good article where essentially they talk about how Agatha only gets about maybe 59.5% of the Acolyte's viewership for the days in which we have been actually provided. So if it gives you any idea, yeah, it's bad.
Yeah, really bad. Has anyone here watched The Penguin on HBO Max? Yeah.
Yes.
So real quick, guys, I want to get your take on The Penguin because I've watched it twice now. I went back and watched it a second time. I'm a little bit surprised at how much love the show's getting because it's not a bad show, but it's not like something that's like so good that I'm like, oh, I can't wait to see the next episode. I feel like it's better than pretty much most of what we get. And in relationship to that, it's like mind-blowingly good, right?
That's the problem.
Yeah, but to me, it's just like I'm like I feel like I'm watching a new season of The Sopranos when I'm watching the show.
Oh darn!
And I was just kind of a casual fan of Sopranos. I thought that was an overrated show as well. But I want to get Mr. Random's take on The Penguin. I know you probably haven't watched it because you're too busy suffering through Rings of Power, but. What's your take on the viewing numbers, which basically came out as like close to 6 million viewers in 4 days for the premiere of The Penguin?
Yeah, like you say, I haven't had chance to actually watch the show, although I did see the was it just called the Batman, the Robert Pattinson one, which is where So I'm familiar with the character, and I guess it's interesting enough that they're making a show of him. I'm honestly very surprised that it is at all successful. But if it is as good as people are saying that it is, then I'm very happy to hear that it is successful. Because honestly, it's kind of reminding me of like the whole Andor scenario. It's like, well, this might be a hot take because I'm not too clued in on the whole Batman universe, but who cares about the Penguin? Is that a hot take?
I honestly think it's kind of funny that I think mainly it's because nobody really watched Gotham before that they haven't noticed that the story is basically the same storyline. Now, I haven't watched it, but from everything everybody said, I'm like, everything you're explaining to me is basically what Gotham was. And
I haven't watched it.
I didn't like the Batman at all. I know everybody knows that. I don't understand why they spent so much money to make Colin Farrell look like Richard Kind and basically be Tony Soprano.
Right.
Like, okay, cool. Is it Batman, though, without Batman? Okay, I don't know. I mean, I guess at the end of the day, I think people are just desperate for something like The Sopranos more so than something like The Penguin. But The Penguin just happened to fit that, and Colin Farrell's a good actor. We always knew that. I mean, that's not a, big, huge, whoa. It's just Hollywood's always kind of kept him kind of like this because he's always been kind of a bad boy. So they've never really kind of given him any kind of praise or anything like. Because I remember a couple of years back, like a decade back, there was all these stories about like why Colin Farrell's never been nominated for Oscars, yet he's this great actor, and it's because he's an alcoholic playboy. That's why. It's like, yeah, he's fucking Irish. What the hell do you expect? Like, I mean, that's normal. Like, so yeah, no, I'm not surprised. Yet I mean, I think there's supposed to be some Trump allegory that some people are missing, but it's mainly just because the people that make it see Trump one way and the people that are watching it see Trump another, so they're not drawing the comparison. But somebody was saying something about like the whole thing is supposed to be some Trump allegory. It was in Time magazine.
I don't see that.
So yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like I said, it's probably because we don't see Trump the way they see Trump.
They try to put
I think they see Trump at anytime
anything.
anytime someone's being bad. Like it's gonna be Trump. So
it was basically drawing the parallel to this ugly monster who's trying to gain power and who's really just somebody who's laughed at and and all that kind of stuff. So it's like, yeah, they see him as this.
That's a bit of a stretch, I think.
Yeah,
it was in Time magazine. I'm just telling you what's there.
That speaks for itself if it's in Time magazine.
Well, the thing about the Penguin character, and I tried watching Gotham, but I couldn't make it past season 2 because it was just so stupid. But the character of the Penguin in the comic books, at least when I was reading comic books, what made him so interesting is that he really was kind of like a traditional mob boss, but he was like so intelligent that he found ways to kind of like work around Batman as opposed to like, directly confronting him, like having like fist fights and stuff like that. It was more of a pragmatic relationship where like they were playing like 4D chess with each other and they kept trying to like one up each other. It was very rare that him and Penguin would actually fight. And so he was closer to like a criminal mastermind than someone like the Joker, who was just like a homicidal maniac. And they could find common ground occasionally, but they were always enemies. And so this idea of the rise to power of the Penguin to become like the head gangster in Gotham, I think is an interesting idea for a series. Go ahead, Mr. Butters.
I just want to know when he's going to get his helicopter umbrella.
They're setting that up though. I will say that like they have already in this first episode. That's why I really do like this episode so much, because one could argue about story elements here and there. I guess for me, it's that even if this story element has maybe been done before, it was not done this well. And I think that is the difference, is that you have fantastic actors who are doing these characters, I would say, lots of justice. Like they are just fully embracing their characters. They're fully diving into it. And that's, I think, why people are enjoying it. I totally agree with that criticism of why would you spend this much money to put Colin Farrell in makeup to look like an entirely different person? I think that is a completely ridiculous thing to do, but they did. And the fact is, he does not feel at all either in look or in tone or anything. Like there's only a few moments in the show where I'm like, oh yeah, I can see Colin Farrell in there. Everything else, I'm like, who is this guy? Like this could be a completely different actor for all I know, which is, I think, speaks to one, how effective and well done the makeup is, but then also how great Colin Farrell's performance is in the actual film, in the actual show so far itself. Now it's still very early, so it's still hard. It's gonna be hard to tell exactly how this, whether this goes the distance in any way. But I do think that it is already laying the groundwork, as you just said, of him being this manipulative person who can do things, say things, and be able to work through and work with the people, right, the scum that he's dealing with ultimately, and how he can basically outthink them. And I think that he's doing a great job of that.
I think like the makeup and the prosthetics, like that whole conversation, I think it's quite interesting because it means that what you're able to do is get an extremely accomplished actor like Colin Farrell, but you're able to then almost cheat and get the unknown actor element into his performance, so that when you're looking at him, like you say, you're not seeing, oh, it's Colin Farrell. You can just completely get absorbed and be like, who the hell is this guy? Like this, you see the character rather than the actor.
Well, let me just throw this out to the panel to kind of wrap things up for this segment, which is basically, we have House of the Dragons, we have Penguin, we have the upcoming Dune miniseries on HBO Max, and HBO Max seems to be putting out original series that have a different level of quality than what we've seen from something like Disney and Amazon, right? Amazon has some good quality stuff.
That's because they've been doing it for a couple decades already with HBO. And don't forget that these are also on HBO proper as well. They're not just Max exclusives.
Right.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is that it seems like Max and HBO Max, or Warner Brothers Discovery, however you want to refer to them, just seems to have a better quality standard for the writing and like the cinematography and stuff like that than something like Disney or Amazon does, or even Netflix, because Netflix is hit or miss as well. So I want to get everyone's take on that before we wrap things up. Do you think that HBO is basically like worth the subscription versus like all these other like streaming platforms
versus everything else in comparison? I mean, absolutely. I would
HBO's been putting out quality stuff like this since The Sopranos came out.
That's what I was basically getting at. Yeah, so, like, I mean, this is old hat for them. Yeah.
Yeah, this is nothing new.
And also, like, the fact that this show is better than The Batman, like, because that was a movie also I was not a big fan of either. I thought that the first 20 minutes was cool, but everything after that, I was like, kind of lost interest, and the end especially was awful. But this show, first episode, is already in and of itself better than the entire Batman movie.
I will say I only watched that Batman movie one time, and I didn't really like it, but I think I might go give it a rewatch when this is done, just because. But we'll see how that goes. I don't know.
All right, guys. Well, we had a lot to talk about today, and we talked about it. I want to thank my fantastic panel of nerds for being here. But real quick, also want to read Art to the Icky's super chat for $4.99. He grows them inside the enclosed no window habitat, LOL, and then survives eating the potatoes. So R2 is Team Kadish when it comes to the potatoes. So
No, he's not.
appreciate you, R2.
There's no Team Kadish when it comes to potatoes.
Also, our raffle winner, Aaron Charman, gifted one
Yay.
Salty Nerd podcast
All
membership.
right.
Thank you so much, Aaron. Really appreciate you. All right. So, guys, Odin, Lord of the Shelves, where can people find you? And do you have any final thoughts?
Yes, I hope we can talk a bit more about Penguin next week, because if the second episode is as good as the first episode, I think it's going to be something that people want, especially in the era that we are in of this terrible string of TV shows from the likes of Amazon and others, like, are just so hungry for quality shows. So
Yes.
I think it'd be fun to be able to talk through that. So hopefully it's good. But yeah, you can find me over at OMB Reviews on YouTube, Odyssey, and Rumble. And the next thing I have is on Monday night, 7:45 p.m. Eastern Time, my Welcome to Asgard podcast live stream. We'll be talking about some box office numbers, of course, and hopefully I'll be able to see a movie or two. Thank y'all.
Yeah, and go check out Odin's box office breakdowns over on geeksandgamers.com. Good stuff over there.
Thank you.
And follow him on Criticless because he
Yes.
has good reviews over there.
I use it, Mr. Kadish.
Yes, he does.
Unlike some.
Must be nice to have free time. It's great. Shorty Short for $2. Thanks for the penguin talk. LOL. You're welcome, Shorty Short. Tom Connors from Midnight's Edge. Any final thoughts, and where can people find more of you?
Sisters, sisters, ooh, 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 yeah, going
He's at it
down.
with the AI music
Got a
again.
sisters, give me your ear, let me slap your rear. Let's
He just does this so he can copyright claim our stream after it's over.
That's right. How do you think I make the big bucks?
Oh, no.
Oh man.
Now you can find me at Midnight's Edge After Dark, all the fun places I usually am. I should be on Pop Culture Minefield later talking about Shadow of the Vampire.
Yeah. All right. And our special guest, Mr. Random Film Talk. Thank you for coming here and educating us on the current state of Rings of Failure. Appreciate you taking one for the team. Where can people find more of you? And do you have any final thoughts?
Well, firstly, yeah, thank you for the invite. It has been fun. I'm guessing my channel's probably in the description, but yeah, basically my channel is long form media analysis. So currently, obviously, Rings of Power. We got Hobbit. We've got Rebel Moon. I don't know why I did that, but it was fun. And then yeah, I'm kind of in the process of doing a series on Arcane and also the original Lord of the Rings trilogy. I hate that I now have to call it the originals because Rings of Power exists, but yes, the Lord of the Rings trilogy. I have some videos on those as well. So if that sounds fun, then yeah, check out the channel, which should be in the description. And thank you again for having me.
Well, thanks for being on. And Mr. Butters, what's going on with the Salty Nerd Gaming channel?
Oh, hey, we're having a lot of fun over there playing video games. Every Tuesday, we release our Salt Divers podcast, all about hell divers and what's going on over there. The game is back. They have much improved the game, and I know a lot of people quit amongst all the weirdness, but if you haven't come back yet, you need to come check it out and play. It's a really fun game. And every Friday, we release our Weekend Respawn podcast. For more game talk, but we talk about the industry as a whole there, not just one game. And we have multiple live streams a week, Monday night, Tuesday night. I did one last night, and some of the other ones are just, you just got to pay attention to my Twitter because I don't have a schedule yet. I just can't make a dedicated schedule, but live streams and podcasts, gaming, all kinds of stuff going over there. Really good Discord community, saltynerd.discord.com. Check it out, everybody. And we'll see you there.
Okay, and Tom, if you have a special sound effect ready for Scotty Dub, whether it be applause or horns blowing or something like that, I'm gonna give a big shout out to our new leaderboard leader, top donator, Scotty Dub, for $500.
Very good.
Really appreciate it. He's been a longtime supporter of the show. He's dropped so much money on us. We can't thank him enough for his support. Scotty, you are one of a kind. Truly, really appreciate you, man. In addition to that, we also appreciate Shorty Short, Old Man Rising, Mexican Iron Man, R to the Icky, Darth Maul's lower half, and Latino Slant. And R2, please get well soon. Keep us updated as to your health journey, and hopefully, you will be able to overcome these obstacles you're facing. Really pulling for you, buddy. And to everyone else out there, thank you for tuning in. Drop us a comment in the comments below to let us know what you thought of the show, and whether or not you can grow potatoes without photosynthesis. I think it's possible.
No,
I think it's possible.
you're an idiot.
Fact.
Well, I mean, they did it in The Martian, and movies never lie, so we'll see.
It says artificial light too.
And it's not
All right,
possible.
guys. Tune in next Saturday, same salty time, same salty channel. We'll be welcoming, hopefully, George the Giant Slayer as one of our special guests. And until next time, guys, stay salty, my friends. Potatoes grow in the dark.